Good evening, everyone, and thanks, Reetha, for inviting me down. It's actually a little bit of a different talk to me. This is a lot about my personal journey, where I'm usually invited to talk about my expertise in workshops and collaboration. So, my company is Bracket. What I do at Bracket is I help people that work in creative teams to work better together. And actually anybody that is working with other people to come up with creative and innovative ideas. And I do that through a range of ways, mainly through running workshops. So I do a lot of workshop facilitation. People invite me in to design and facilitate their strategy sessions, away days, brainstorming sessions, etc. I also teach people how to facilitate workshops as well, and then I also provide lots of resources, advice, tips for how teams can work better together. And as Reetha said, I've just published this book in October of last year, A Pocket Guide to Effective Workshops. But my business hasn't always been like this. So this evening I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how my business has evolved, how I've kind of reinvented myself as well, but really how my passion has stayed true and to the core. So even though the shape of my business has changed, actually what I've always wanted to do, which is around collaboration, is always there because my passion is quite strong. So I talk about Bracket in 3 versions. I sort of say where there's version 1, 2 and 3. I'm in version 3 now, but version 1 was an agency. So in my previous life, my previous career, I used to work for creative business support organisations. So I used to work, help artists, designers, illustrators, graphic designers become self-employed and help them with business skills. And I did that in universities. And lots of different types of arts organisations, publicly funded organisations. And I got really interested in figuring out how I could help them be more effective in business, how I could help them earn more money, be more productive, be more successful. And I did an MA. I did an MA in Enterprise and Management for the Creative Arts, and started to read into the idea of creative networks and got really interested in this idea of collaboration. So doing lots of reading, lots of theory around sort of Charles Handy, Charles Ledbetter, the creative economy, how networks and collaboration was really important, and just all this idea, which is kind of coming up into the fore now, of how small, nimble, temporary teams would be the future of work. And I kind of thought to myself, well, how can I bring this into the creative sector? How can I help freelancers benefit from this too? So I came up with this idea of developing an agency where I'd have a network of freelancers. I'd get projects in from clients. I'd form a team of freelancers based around that project, and then we'd work together to deliver that project. And then once the project was over, we'd disband. So this was kind of like the first version of Bracket. And when I look back on this kind of first version, that's quite interesting because when I think about it, I actually based this business on the skills that I had in my previous role. It's almost like I wanted to pick myself up as a project manager, someone that ran events, someone that gave advice to creative practitioners, and take myself out of an employer and do this for myself. I wasn't really thinking in terms of like a business and growing, so I was kind of restricting myself. I don't really think about it at the time, but I was then. And even though I had all of the skills, I was able to bring together a team very quickly. I had lots of creative freelancers in my network. I knew what I would do once I got a project in, and I knew how to kind of get things going, facilitate a project, get the best out of everybody. There was one thing that I was missing, which was clients. So even though my previous career had set me up in a really great way to actually run this business really effectively, what it hadn't set me up for was business development and how I would go out and find those clients. In my previous career, all of my contacts were in education, in the not-for-profit sector, funders, people doing things like me. So I had no contacts whatsoever in the commercial sector, in corporates, in people that actually had the money to be able to pay for this thing. But anyway, I was stubborn. I really believed in this idea, probably stubborn to a fault. And I kept going. I've actually got a legacy project from that era. It's a client called Uri Clark. They're a law firm, an accountancy firm. And they commissioned us a few years ago to produce a series of animations for them. So I pulled together an animator, an illustrator, a script writer, and every now and again we come together and we produce these animations and deliver them for this client, and they love them. There's 5 of them so far. We just delivered one this year. But it's really interesting because now when I'm doing that, I'm kind of thinking, I'm so glad this isn't my business because I really don't want to be doing just this. I love it, but I don't want to be doing just this. Anyway, so as I said, found it very difficult to find clients. I was still stubborn. But one of the things that made sense to me, every time I got a team together, was that at the start of the project, I'd get all of the team together in a room and I'd run a kick-off workshop. It just seemed to make natural sense to me. But what happened was that increasingly, the people in those workshops kept saying to me, Alison, you're really good at that. Can you come and do that for us? And I kind of started to listen. I actually really loved it because I really loved the idea of helping people to get from a mess into something more productive, getting teams to work productively together. Loved the idea of like post-it notes and brainstorming and flip charts and doing it effectively. So I started volunteering and doing this for people. Doing it a little bit more and more. As I said, people kept on saying, can you do this for me? And at the end of one particular meeting, it was a quite high-profile businessman that was in the meeting, and he came up to me at the end of the meeting and he said to me, I've sat in loads and loads of meetings, and you're by far one of the best facilitators I've ever seen. You should do this and make money from it. And I thought, I should probably listen to you. So actually I did. I started to promote myself, quite reluctantly actually, because I was still in love with this idea of the agency. I started to promote myself as a facilitator. This is a picture from, I used to do these little kind of events every now and again where I'd still bring freelancers together from my network in an evening and kind of do a little brainstorming session, which I loved because I love facilitation, and they loved because they just loved getting together with other people. In any case, as I said, I reluctantly promoted myself as a facilitator. I love workshop facilitation, love doing it. As I say, I love the results that come from it. But there was two things that were a little bit wrong with, in the back of my mind, niggling away at me. The first one was that I really didn't like this idea of my business being about me. It sounds really odd, but I called my business Bracket for a reason. Otherwise, I would have just called it Alison Coward Consultancy. And I just always knew that I wanted it to be bigger than me. And as a facilitator, if my business was me as a facilitator, then it was just about me. And the other thing as well was that as a workshop facilitator, if my business was about workshop facilitation, I saw it was restricting me in terms of growth, or restricting my business in terms of growth, because my business could only be as big, as busy as I could be. So as much as I was in the room was the limit of my business. So I did start to think about ways, what are the ways that I can kind of develop this? I wasn't quite sure. Started to kind of just have that at the back of my mind. Sorry, I'll go back a slide because I'm not quite ready for that yet. So I just sort of had this at the back of my mind. And what was interesting was that as I started to get a bit more known for the workshop facilitation, people started tapping me on the shoulder and saying, I've got a workshop next week. Can you give me a few tips? Can I pick your brain? I thought, well, this is quite interesting. That's, people never really asked me to do that before. So I tested it out a couple of times with some coaching, just very, very low key. And still didn't really know what to do it. And then there came a turning point. Actually, there was an event that somebody asked me to speak at, and they asked me to, it was a very, very lo-fi event, very informal. They asked me to come along and do a presentation on how you can use this tool, which is the Value Proposition Canvas. The Value Proposition Canvas is a tool for helping teams, companies to figure out who their customers are and how they can develop better products for them. It's a great workshop tool. You print out large posters of them, you get everyone standing around them, and it's a really, really great tool to use in workshops. So a contact has asked me to come along, do a presentation about how you can use this in workshops. Very lo-fi. There were about 10 people in the room, but out of those 10 people, 3 interesting things happened. The first thing was there was someone from a design agency. She approached me afterwards, and she recognised that there was some value in the skills that I had, and she wanted to look at how she could help the people in her agency develop those skills. So I saw there was a need for agencies, design agencies, learning more about facilitation. The second thing was the person that approached me about this book was in the audience, and he approached me afterwards. We were going to write it together, but actually he decided for other reasons I ended up writing it by myself. So the book came out of that event. And then the third thing is that Rob at the back there, Rob was in the audience, and he invited me to come up and speak at UX Brighton in February, and the talk went down really well. I gave my top 10 tips for running workshops, and out of that talk, UX Brighton asked me to come back and run a one-day masterclass. So what was interesting was out of that, those 10 people, these three things happened which really gave me the confidence that I was kind of moving in the right direction. I was kind of thinking, you know what, I want this to be bigger than me. I don't just want to facilitate workshops, I want to make a wider impact. I think this kind of came from my previous days of working in creative business support organisations, but I really wanted to help more people do, facilitate, do collaborate, and this seemed to be going in the right direction. So kind of call this version 3, do-it-yourself collaboration. So the first version was the agency. Second version, me as a workshop facilitator. And version 2, I call that do it for you. So these are people that just want me to come in and facilitate for them, which again, I love. And I think it's really important for me to do that because I want to be close to it. And I also love being very close to the process as well. But this third thing is what I'm exploring now, this idea of how can I help more people to develop the skills that I have. I don't think it's a mystical skill. I think it's very easy, but I think that some people can be very daunted by it. So my aim is to kind of break down that mystique and make it very simple and very accessible. And I think what's interesting is that it's almost like Bracket has come full circle. So when I started Bracket, it was very much about the future of work, small, nimble teams, people collaborating very quickly. And it was just about me doing that, me putting those teams together. Now it's come full circle and it's about me teaching other people how to do that, which I think, again, will hopefully have more impact. And these are some of the clients that I've worked with. And as I say, when I first started Bracket, I had no commercial contacts whatsoever. So sort of looking at that list, I feel quite proud that I've managed to sort of build up some of those commercial contacts as well. But also the proof that there's a need for what I'm doing and what I'm moving into. Oh, yeah. So a couple of things. The first thing is I'm doing a talk on Thursday at the Divi conference, the Design It, Build It conference in Edinburgh. And I just think sort of one of the things that I think is I never thought, if you just asked me when I started Bracket or told me that in a few years' time you're going to be standing up in front of people telling them how to run workshops, I really wouldn't have believed you because I was so set on this idea of running an agency that I just couldn't see the possibility of anything else. And this just happened recently, actually. It's a company that I really respect. The designers of the business model canvas and the value proposition canvas interviewed me for one of their podcasts. And they started to create these lovely little graphics, and I'm on one of them. And I feel quite proud to be up there with some other big names as well. So just in summary, the three things really that I wanted to get across with this talk. The first one is, even though my business has changed, the shape of my business has changed, and I've kind of reinvented myself, this idea of collaboration, I've always remained really passionate about it. It hasn't changed at all. It's been the thread that's kind of kept all of the versions of my business together. The second thing is serendipity, and lots of people think about serendipity as being like this kind of unplanned event, this thing that you stumble across, but I don't think it's that. I think it's 3 stages. I think the first thing is that you have to be looking for something. You have to be open to it. The second thing is that when this serendipitous event happens, you have to recognise it. And then the third thing is that you have to do something about it. So serendipity is kind of 3 stages. And then the final thing is being open to change. Like my business, if I'd have kind of stayed, fixated on this idea of an agency, I'd probably be out of business now, but I've been open to change. I've listened to what people have said to me. I've listened to what people have asked me to do. I have kind of followed my own desire, my own passion as well, but I've kind of made sure that I've remained flexible in that as well. To finish off, I've got, if you're interested in reading anything, sort of any of my ideas, I've got a free ebook, and please feel free to download it. It's just my ideas around team collaboration and some of the things that I use with my creative teams, some of the techniques and tips that I use with my creative teams that I work with. And that's it from me. Thank you very much.